Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. You got the notes of it originally,
yes.
and it is currently in possession at Villanova.
African American, it's on Villanova's allowing the African American Museum to display it, and it was.
How did you get these typewritten notes of the I Have a Dream speech?
Being in the right place at the right time. So they're going to have the March on Washington, and one of my best friends, his dad was a dentist in Claymont, Delaware, and my friend's name was Warren Wilson. So that night, I'm having dinner with their family in Claymont, Delaware, where they live, and Dr. Wilson said, "Hey, are you guys going down to the March on Washington tomorrow?" And we said no, and he said, "Why not?" And so we don't have any money or way to get there. So he said, "All right, I'll solve that. Warren, you take the extra car. I'll give you guys enough money for a motel and eating and that." But he had a premonition that this was going to be a bigger deal than people thought. And so we went down the night before we got there and found a place to lodge. And then we went down just to get an idea of the layout for the Washington Monument grounds. And we run into this man as we're walking around, and he said, "Hey, are you guys coming to the march tomorrow?" And we said, "Yes." And he said, "Would you be interested in volunteering?" We said, "For what?" He said, "To be security guards." So we said, "Sure." And we met him the next morning at 8 o'clock, and both of us are 6'4", and he looked at us and he said, "Okay, you guys are going to be part of the podium security."
For the speech.
For the speech, yeah.
On the steps.
Yes.
Wow.
And
of the memorial.
You got that right. And so the next day we come and he assigns us, puts us up on the podium, and I'm right off the left of Dr. King when he starts the speech in that. And here's some things that, Richard, people don't know. First of all, the speech never had a title. It was typed out, and it was a shorter version of he ad-libbed the "I Have a Dream" part into the speech. He's getting toward the end, and you get down to one more paragraph in the type part, and as he's speaking, you hear this voice say, "Tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream." And that voice was Mahalia Jackson, great black Negro gospel singer. Her and Dr. King were very close friends, and Mahalia Jackson, and she financed a lot of it. Harry Belafonte, they financed a lot of Dr. King's meetings and speeches. Mm-hmm. So Martin, there was one time when the movement was about to go bankrupt, and he called Mahalia and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And he told her, he said, "The movement's is going to have to stop. We don't have any money," and that. And so she said, "Martin, look, don't worry about it. I'll get the money." So then she went out and booked 10 speeches around the country. Mm-hmm. And all the money she got, she gave it to King to keep the movement going.
And so he must have told her about a dream. So she, in the middle of this speech, is telling about the dream.
She had heard him use a speak at her dad's church and some other places. She had heard him use the "I Have a Dream" piece.
Right.
And so then she just says to him, you could feel it. He was the last speaker. He's got everybody in the palm of his hand. These people have been standing out there for 6 hours in the hot sun. And so he ad-libs that piece in. So it had no title. So the dignitaries go to the White House, and when they walk in the Oval Office, the president says, "Dr. King, I loved your 'I Have a Dream' speech. I loved it." And the media picked up on the "I Have a Dream" part and
Right.
and put that title on it. But the speech never, in origin, was called "I Have a Dream."
How did you wind up with the notes?
So I was standing right there. So we were told right at the end when he's done to start to form this V around him and to usher him out the back of the Lincoln Memorial.
For protection.
Yeah, for protection. They got a bus back there.
Real quick, are you in that photograph?
Yeah, I'm over down. You can't see it here. I should have brought you one, but I'm off to the right there.
Okay, you're off to the right.
Yeah.
Here, your son's right here. Hold on a minute. Thank you, Mark. Here, if you don't mind, I'm going to pop it right there for our camera to potentially see it. So that this is you.
Yes, this is right at. He's coming up to the end of the speech right now.
Right.
And we're getting a strategic position to help him off. So when he finishes, he starts to fold the speech. And as he turns, I don't know why, I just said, Dr. King, can I have that copy? And he handed it to me. It's actually on CBS has done a documentary a couple years ago, and they show right when he's folding and handing the speech to me. But at that time, little did I know that this would be one of the most historic speeches of all time. And Rich, I had it for over 50 years, and no one knew I had it. My senior year at Villanova, I played in the East-West All-Star game in Kansas City, and they took us out to meet President Truman, the team. And so after Truman met with the players and talked for a little while, on the way out, he had a 2-volume a book about his presidency. And on the way out, he gave the set to each player. So when I opened mine up, it says to George H. Raveling from Harry S. Truman, and both of them are signed. So I put the King's speech inside of one of them because I knew there would be no way I would ever throw the book away or that, because how many people can say they have a personal autographed book from a president of the United States? And so I had it for over 50 years before people really realized that I had it. And I when I took the job at Iowa as the head coach, the Des Moines Register was going to do a Sunday story on me in a newspaper, and one of the reporter that was putting the story together, he got lucky, and he just happened to, he said, "Let me ask you this, Coach, have you ever been actively involved in the civil rights movement?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, give me an example." And I told him about that.
How about I was security for Martin Luther King on the day of the I Have a Dream speech, standing to his left, and he gave me the notes.
Yeah.
How about that for a scoop?
And so he calls the editor, and they approved to do this to do the story.
Sure.
So now, for the first time, the public knows that I have the speech, and so I kept it inside of the Truman books, just so if I ever needed a frame of reference where the speech was, it was inside of one. And if you saw the Truman book today, you can actually see the shadow where the speech was being held there.
And so now it's in the care of Villanova for people to see and curate, and it's a museum piece, man.
And the African American Museum, they keep it on display for 6 months out of the year.
I love it. And just one last question for you for this, and then I want to talk to you about coaching, and I'll let you on for your day. How old were you when you were next to him on that day? Would you say you were in your 20s?
Yes. Okay. Let's see.
Just do the math right now. So you were in your 20s.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking, looking out there and seeing that mass of humanity on a day like this, standing next to Dr. Martin Luther King? What was going through your mind, George Raveling, when you're looking out on that scene?
Dr. King cast a spell over everyone. I mean, he energized you. He made you feel. It was a little bit like a pep rally, you know. And but if you're standing there in the Lincoln Memorial, looking out into the reflective pool.
Yes.
All you can see is a mass of humanity, of people standing, young kids up in the trees and so forth. And so originally they wanted King to go and to be one of the middle speakers. They started at 9 in the morning and it went through and they finally decided, let's put King at the end because he'll hold the crowd.
Yeah.
And he just had everybody spellbound. The rhythm, he'd say, "How long is this? How long? How long will wounded justice lie prostrate in the streets?" And then he'd hesitate and he'd say, "Not long." He would take the audience and he would rise them, take them up spiritually, and then he'd hit them with a line.
Did you leave that day hopeful? Hopeful. Did you leave that day hopeful?
Absolutely hopeful. I think that what happened was, and later times, Dr. King and met with Malcolm X. They supposedly had this meeting up in Harlem, and they talked about. And like Malcolm said, I'll be the heavy hammer. You be the soft and gentle soul. But we both working for the same thing, and so the whole King experience for me was one of the 2 or 3 most rewarding things in my life. I started collecting speeches by him. On the cassette tapes and that, and I'm convinced of this. Martin Luther King knew that he was going to be assassinated the next day. If you listen to the speech the night before, in there he said, "I might not be with you when we get to the mountaintop, but you'll get to the mountaintop. I might not be with you after this." And I truly believe if you listen to King's last public speech, you know that he sensed that he was going to get assassinated that next day. And there's actually just a new book just came out last week about the assassination of King at the motel there in Memphis. So there's still a lot to be learned from him, but I think he kept hope alive in people. He gave them a dream and told them how we could make this dream together. And it was little at that time did I know how important this was going to be. I used to keep in my office when I was up at Nike. I kept a collage on my wall. It was a headshot of Martin Luther King, a headshot of James Baldwin, a headshot of Malcolm X, and a headshot of Muhammad Ali. And people would come in and they look and they say, "Coach, why do you have that picture up there?" And I said, "Oh, they're all my mentors." And then they'll say, "Oh, you knew all those guys?" I said, "No, I only knew Martin Luther King." But you don't have to know somebody for them to be your mentor. And so I spent much of my adult life being mentored by way of books and speeches by those people. And just think about this, Rich. All but Baldwin were assassinated. They're all and Ali. But what happened was one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King is, "If a man or woman hasn't found something in life that they're willing to die for, maybe they're not fit to live." And King was willing to die. Malcolm was really willing to die. And when a person is so passionate about something that they say, "I would give my life for this," boy, that's a commitment to put yourself out there on the firing line. And you know that I thought a lot about when King was. I'd think to myself, I said, "God, in the morning he gets up. He's heading out. He gives the girls a kiss. He gives his wife a kiss." And the reality is, might be the last time he kisses either one of them or they see him. Because every day when he walked out that door, his life was at stake.
Unbelievable. And to hear the story like that and from you on this day, Martin Luther King Day, is truly remarkable. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.